Jason, thanks for hanging out with me. We met at Juicy a couple weeks ago, and we had a very interesting conversation. I spent my entire career in tech, without branching out too much, and then you and I met. You have a background in tech, but you also, that's why you were at Juicy. You branched out quite a bit recently, and actually started a co-working space of your own. I hear the opening's gone well, but it's been a kind of an eventful time where you are just south of Bentonville lately with the weather and everything. Maybe given that this goes up on the ezeep channel with a bunch of technology stuff, maybe you can give people a little bit of background, who you are, what you've been up to lately, and then we'll just talk a few things that I think about that are unique kind of in your background and that I think might be interesting for our audience in the co-working and shared workspace things, where you bring some unique perspectives and experiences to the table, and we'll see where this takes us.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. It was a breath of fresh air to run into another techie out at Juicy for sure. So I felt kind of on an island a little bit, but it was good to have a hallway chat about some of the things. And yeah, my background is technology. So spent a lot of days at corporate America doing technical administration for Unix and Linux and storage and backup and a lot of various disciplines of tech. Through the years, became an architect, and then we launched a managed service company to do IT services for small businesses. And now the newest venture is the co-work space. So we recognize the need for the flex office, felt uniquely positioned with our background to fill that need and integrate systems pretty seamlessly so that what we say is humans can do human things. So that's how we landed with Railside, and we launched about a month ago now, I guess. And you mentioned the background a little bit in the intro of the weather. Like recently, we had a weather event come through, and it's been nice to be able to open the doors and onboard people that maybe were impacted with the tornadoes and their office is closed temporarily, to bring people in and have them set up very quickly and get them back to work to where they can be effective for their little businesses.
And you said you even did that for free for some people, right? That were
Yeah,
really
it's
hard hit
largely,
and
yeah. Most of the stuff is free. The open space stuff, we've got some folks that say, hey, they're going to be here for a while, so we've offset like the first month's rent free, and then after that, they'll be here until their buildings get rebuilt or whatever. But just using what space we have and the resources we've been blessed with to try to serve the community in a way that's positive for them. And like I say, some of them will be here a little longer than others. We're flexible. That's the good part about the co-work thing, and so we can spin them up and spin them off pretty easily with what we have.
that is incredible. It's not often that we actually have a chance to give back to the communities that we're in a little bit, and it's not always the greatest occasion when that happens, but I feel like, especially in these somewhat chaotic times after the pandemic and so forth, it's always good to step in whenever there's a chance. But I think you mentioned flexibility. Maybe that also kind of opens the door to ask the question. You said you have that background in technology. How does that influence how you designed the Railside co-working space?
Yeah, so from the tech side, if I rewind to my corporate days, our CTO used to like hammer on us Google Smart, Fisher Price Simple. That was like his mantra. So everything we set out to do should do all the things behind the curtain, and all the magic should happen without a user knowing, and it should be Fisher Price Simple to execute. So when we began the journey, it's actually been years of like bench building and testing and waiting for the opportunities and things like that to come along. And so we were able to test and vet different vendors over that time frame, partner with the right vendors, bring those integrations together into a cloud-based system that we call Smart Spaces. And so Smart Spaces is kind of that overlay for all the tech stuff that runs Railside, and then any other. We've had this vision multi-location from the very beginning, so that's kind of what will happen as we spin out more locations. They'll just be Smart Spaces community members, and in that stack, we've got your enterprise Wi-Fi with the user level authentication, super secure. Core competencies being technology is super focused on security and simplicity. Technology can be great, but if people can't use it, it's worthless. So we've got to make it where it's consumable. So we have a really good system for the Wi-Fi authentication aspect of what we do. We've got an access control vendor that we use for the doors to actually physically enter the building. Easy, a part of the story we shared in the hall there was like, it so reminds me of a virtualization technology I used in my corporate days for storage, how you've approached basically virtualizing printers. And so I don't know a sysadmin that enjoys printers, never met one in my life. Your product makes it a lot easier to manage for sure. So the fact that I can present a single printer that no matter where it lives in my environment and what building it's in or whatever, I can give them an printer, and then they can scan a QR code. And the journey is, at the end of the day, my job is to print paper. I've got to get it physically picked up somewhere. I can walk over and scan a code and it prints out the pages. That was like a no brainer. It's like, okay, this makes this thing work. So boiling things down to make them Fisher Price simple, the core systems that run a workspace like this, we feel, uniquely positioned to design it properly, partner with the right vendors, and manage and support it. The IT firm we have, Integratech, is coupled with smart spaces. And so as we scale the IT side, there's a synergy, to use a buzzword there, that I can place a technician in our co-work spaces to support and manage everything there in those spaces. So it's a unique blend there that as I scale one business, it helps me grow. And then it also helps the Railside or the smart spaces locations as well on that side for the tech to underpin it and continue to grow it and have an amenity almost of a super geek on site everywhere we go.
That is definitely a unique feature. That's not something that most spaces offer. I think I've been to a bunch of co-working spaces or shared workspaces, whatever you want to call them. They're always very, very nice people. They make sure you feel good, you have everything you need, but they are typically not the type of people that are deeply involved in the technology of the space. And honestly, I don't blame them. You and I both have several decades worth of experience in technology. And I don't know that I would be good at being the community manager for a co-working space. I think those are two very different types of personalities and mindsets. So having that, steal that buzzword, having that synergy in the space, I think that's very cool. You're in an area where there's a lot of business activity, a lot of people catering to a certain very large corporation. I assume they have very specific needs. And then one thing that I would like to touch or would like to ask you to touch on for a moment is the need for proper security compliance and things like that. We see more and more people from corporate backgrounds or as employees of corporate entities setting up shop in co-working spaces. And I don't know that everyone who's not been in some sort of regulated, whether that's self-regulated or legally regulated uh, kind of entity or industry, I don't know that people really are aware of how crucial um, security, whether it's door locks, whether it's logs for the door logs, whether it's printing, how important that piece is to providing an environment where corporations, as they figure out how we actually work these days, so that they have the opportunity to actually set up shop in a space and don't have to walk because something's missing in the overall environment or the concept of the environment.
Yeah, I looked around the area at other co-work when we were kind of on this journey of planning and designing and seeing what was popping up. And like you said, I mean, the corporate background is, there's just a wealth of knowledge and experience there that a lot of people don't understand. It's a totally different ball game, and so compliance is a big deal, right? We're publicly traded. We got to deal with Sarbanes-Oxley, or you name it, right? All the list of T's and C's you got to manage for that stuff. And so when we set out to build it, we set it out to be like super flexible. And the underpinning of all the technology we have is really with an enterprise mindset. Like the example I gave you, when we were kind of kicking this thing off, was the company that was impacted, and they had to come down. Their office is totally torn apart, and they set up in the corner back here. Well, they come in and they've got legacy like hardware that they're required to run because their old printers have a certain system that work for their BOLs and all their invoices and different things. And so that needs to run immediately. So we were able to work with their provider of the software that runs the core of their business, find out what the tech specs were for the network. And essentially, we recreated a virtual network within the co-working space just for them. The Wi-Fi is exactly the same as the office in Rogers, and so their devices automatically rejoined. They didn't have to do anything to add a new network. They just walked in with their phones and they popped on the network. Their laptops popped on the network, and the printers and all the network layout. After I spoke to the engineers in Texas, it's like, okay, we can build that. We built that in a bubble. It's completely secure. And so they're up and running with a virtual instance of their network that's been reproduced as a container inside of our building. Um, Not a lot of people think through to that degree when they design these things. A lot of it is, hey, it's good enough. I've got Wi-Fi. I've got maybe a level of security, whatever type of authentication that is, whether it's a single password, which we do have some of those around here where it's like you log in with the same password for everybody. There's no audit trail to speak of. There's no way to track or manage or turn off certain access for people. So having that granularity, having the scale and flexibility is something that we placed at the top of the list for design because we wanted to have all the nerd knobs, like I like to say, so that we can twist all the things and make stuff happen. And so if an audit firm were to come in and say they needed something or they needed to run a specific report for something, we can work with them on that. We can produce those results. We can show them different things in our network, or other, like you say, it's not just, I mean, Wi-Fi gets a lot of attention because that's kind of, the cybersecurity vector of it all, but you got physical security too. You got access to the building and the different doors and offices and things. So, and education is part of it. I mean, we carry that skill set and 45 years of Fortune 100 pedigree for like technology experience. And this conference room I'm sitting in right now, we book it. We've started to where like once a month, twice a month, we're going to start booking it to educate the members on general technology topics. Like we'll do Q&A roundtables for small business tech. We'll do how to get the best out of 365, different types of things. That's that benefit of Integratech being a part of this journey. But yeah, compliance is big. And I think you mentioning like as co-work continues to evolve, as more of these bigger companies look to be flexible like this, other places in our area, the answer to that has been like, okay, build your own network from the wall, get your own carrier all the way down the pipe, your own hardware. And it's a huge investment. And to me, you immediately begin to deter when you start talking a lot of capital costs, for those things. You deter people from coming and renting with you because it should be flexible and operational. It shouldn't be capital heavy. So we wanted to underpin everything we have with a level of hardware and technologies that's there that we can provide any level of service they need. Now, if they choose to run down that pathway, that's okay still. I mean, they can do that as a customer. We can help them run their own stuff in here, but it's not preferred. I mean, we can check all the boxes they need checked and work with their technicians to mimic anything in this environment and maintain compliance however they want to.
That is pretty incredible. And since I'm the printer guy on this interview or whatever you want to call it. One thing I want to kind of point out, if I may, you mentioned it kind of in the run up to this. The printers that you actually set up for that customer, for anyone who's old enough actually watching this, are dot matrix printers. So that effect, that's a feat in and of itself. Because you take a modern day laser printer with IPP and everything, you can probably work something out, but a dot matrix printer, I have a car rental place that I religiously go to when I need a car here in Denver, and they have a dot matrix printer, and I can't help every time to walk in and think like, I don't even know where they found this thing that it's still working or what they do, where they buy the paper for it. But I think that's just the difference between some of the very modern, very digital workspaces that a lot of us find ourselves in our like white collar functions, if you will, to the boots on the ground corporate functions where service technicians need to go out somewhere, things need to be shipped, medical records need to be processed or handed to a patient, whatever all those things might be. Um, there's just a whole a whole slew of print things that exist out there. And like you said, I mean, I've somehow found myself into a group of 150 or so people that dedicate a lot of time and energy to printing. But generally, I would agree, there's not a sysadmin out there that really wants to deal in printing. So I'm happy to hear that there are some things that we can do around that. But I'm also keeping an eye on the time. Those who set this call up for us warned us that we should not give in to our natural instinct and talk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's any closing words, if you want to shamelessly plug the IntegraTech services to whoever's out there and might need some advice, be my guest. I'm very happy you had time for me to talk to you today. Um, yeah, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just to kind of close, like you say, Henning. I mean, it really comes down to partnerships and relationships. Like I look at anything as if all I'm doing is slinging widgets and doing techie stuff. I'm one leg of a three-legged stool, right? So it's people, process, and technology. So you mentioned earlier that much of the co-work spaces, the hospitality aspect is a core competency. It has to be, right? I mean, it's as a service, space as a service. We totally get that. But to me, if you fail the technology leg of that, then the interaction you have with your membership is mostly around how do I connect to this? How do I print to that? How do I this? That's not the relationship you want to create. So, we struck out with this journey to really nail the technology so we could free the people, like let humans do human things, kind of like I talked about earlier. And then, the process aspect of it. And that's that integration piece, which also kind of lends itself on the tech is if you string it all together and build the integrations and you have a single hub to manage it all, so starting with that, you're allowing for the systems to work and they're programmed and they're automated. And then, just like this event that happened, it was over Memorial Day week prior to Memorial Day weekend when it happened. I'm fielding emails and people are like, hey, I saw your LinkedIn post. Can I get set up or whatever? And I go out in our core system, which we use CoWorks, and give them a little plug there. Love Deshaun. Me and him geek out together too. I mean, it's good to have those relationships and lean into those things. But to me, I'm able to go out and initially create, a user in one place, and then it just kicks off a thread of things that happen, and they get a couple emails, and I come in here on Tuesday after the holiday, and people are in here working, and it's like, okay, cool, you're that guy that I didn't even meet that you got set up, and you're here working, and he's like, yep, this is perfect, exactly what I needed. He was able to access the building, get in, do the Wi-Fi thing, all those kind of things. And so it allows that interaction with the people. So it's as important. I mean, technology does play a significant role in it, and we can't diminish that. Now, I'm passionate about it, and that's kind of my focus. But it also allows my community manager to do her thing, too, in here in the space. And then, like I say, the other aspects of the hospitality for providing, like everybody can check the boxes and co-work like, hey, I got snacks and coffee and all that, great, but are you really maximizing the community aspect of it with the people? If you're tripping over technology all the time or you're tripping over process and things. So we've really tried to learn and approach this with like open eyes and open ears. My old boss corporate used to say it's 80-20 rule. You got two eyes, two ears, and one mouth. Use them proportionately. So I try to observe and listen a lot when it comes to entering a new space like this, so I can learn and apply what I've been given and what I've been gifted with to serve this industry the best that I can. So we're excited about smart spaces and kind of what's to come there. We'll incubate this, idea here with IntegraTech right next door and be able to iterate changes quickly. And then we'll move forward into more locations. Geographically, we're spread out the way we grew or up in Northwest Arkansas. We're not real vertical. So I see, 4 locations possibly for smart spaces in this area, and then looking at other states and things like that to grow a larger network of communities across the country, possibly.
Sounds incredible. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you
Yeah.
for being a part of this community, at least for the nerdy people like me. It makes it a lot more interesting than if it was without you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again as part of the community, wherever the next event takes us. I'm not up to date on our schedule. And in the meantime, best of luck with the smart spaces and Railside adventures. Hopefully, everybody gets back to where they want to be. but hopefully that is also a bunch of people that just realize that Railside is the place to be, and they just stick around.
Yep. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you again, man. It's kindred spirits for sure when we get together. So take care.